I'm going to go through the timeline of very kind of up until the point where John went missing, and then kind of what we know after the fact, after his remains were found. And then we'll go into kind of everything we know up to now. And then I'll kind of open up to kind of what's happened today, the George family solicitor's statement, which I think is the most truest form of what we've got as the truth. And then I will answer any questions if anyone has any. Hey Amanda, I won't answer any questions I can't answer, and I will. No, Madison's not on bail. She wasn't arrested because she hasn't, at this point, there was no warrant out for her arrest, so there's nothing that could be done then. So this above me is John George, and he also went by John Hardy. So when he went missing in the beginning, he was kind of put out as both that he was missing. Now, in early December, John Hardy flies, or we're going to call him John George tonight to be fair. John George flies from Belfast to Alicante for a holiday. And that's all we know at the time, that he's flown over there for a holiday. And we know on the December the 14th, John has his last phone call with family, in which he was reportedly stressed at that time. Distressed was also a word that was used. And we know that there was some stern words had with his son by Billy, who kind of said, come on, these aren't your friends, come home, like, what are you doing? And this is going to be the last conversation between a father and son, and I imagine something that still to this day sits with Billy, that it was the last conversation, but it was a loving father kind of saying, like, pack it in and get home, and how we wish that John had come home at that point. Now, on the 18th of December, the 37-year-old is due to fly home to Belfast to join loved ones for Christmas, but he does not board the flight home. On December the 21st, after trying to get hold of some of the people that John was known to be staying with, such as Johnny Smith, a 26-year-old from Belfast, and his 19-year-old girlfriend, Madison Allen, Billy tries to speak to them. They speak to Billy once on the phone and say, we've got no idea where he is. He went on to Benidorm, he was going to meet people. They say lots of mad stuff like that, and at that point, they stop all communication with Billy George and the phone goes off. They also remove any pictures on social media that proves that John George was ever with them, and they are acting straight away very guiltily. Now, on December the 21st, John's dad, Billy George, flies to Alicante in order to file a missing persons report with Spanish police, because you have to do it in person. Now, Duncan has made a lot of kind of claims around that, like why Billy was going over there. Was he trying to hide something? Was he trying to clean up his son's mess? He was simply going over to try and file a missing persons report. And that has been reported on from the Civil Guard as well. That's exactly why Billy was out there. On December the 22nd, a fundraising page is set up by the family, desperate to try and bring people over there quickly to search, and realising how vast the area is. Thank you, sweet cheeks. At this time, they also realise that something very off is happening. We have Madison, who decides to make massive Facebook page post in which she blames John George completely. She says, he was in a car, it got stopped by police, Michael Malley was there, they've let Johnny go back home because his lawyers spoke to them on the phone, and the last time he saw John George was in the kind of company and being almost arrested. He was in handcuffs with the Civil Guard, and Johnny's come home and they've not seen him again. She also goes on later in that same post to call John George a druggie, saying, like, you know, just because we didn't want to do drugs with him, you're all mad at us and all of this. She tries to kind of tear apart his reputation, and then she says, lastly, he's gone to meet Scousers in Benidorm. And it's like, well, all of those things can't be true. He can't be here, and here. Like, you've just messed yourself up a little bit because you've said too much. And Madison has always done this. Like, even as soon as Johnny, who is like the puppet master, has been arrested and is being held behind bars, she's gone to social media to make a social media platform again. She's messaging people back, including myself, on Instagram. She's saying too much again, and she likes to be popular, she likes to be involved, but she hasn't got the kind of moral compass to kind of do the right thing. It's kind of the same little bit as Nicola Sausage was, and I'll explain who she is in a minute. On December the 25th, Christmas Day, the family members spend the Christmas day searching the area for John, that he was last believed to be seen in. In a video message, his dad says, please, I just need local people to come down here, help us find our son before it's too late. I just need him home. Please, tell us where he is. And we know around this time is It must have been a couple of days before Christmas when no, it's not her. When I got the first message from Kushla saying, "You do missing people, and my cousin is missing. Can you put up a video?" So that was around the first time that I put a video up for John George. Thank you, Sal. At that time, it seemed like a very straightforward. Hey, Stacey, a very straightforward missing persons case. Due to where it was and kind of what was going on, it seemed like there was two very distinct possibilities. Either John had been hurt in some way and couldn't come home, or he was kind of partying out there. Thank you, Sleeta. Thank you, Shannon Star. And we have to consider those things. We have to consider, like, could he be partying? Could he be just out having his time of his life in Alicante and he's lost his phone? We have to, I haven't followed this. Is it over drugs? No. So we have to kind of, Abby, we're going to go through the whole case. So if you want to listen, you absolutely can. And we will get to things such as motive, but we don't have the full motive, if I'm going to be honest. So we at this time start putting a social media campaign together, which is Kushla is pushing. We've got it all over. There's Facebook groups appearing that people are joining very quickly. But that we had to consider in the beginning, like, this could be very much, we'll put this appeal out. We've done other cases quite similar recently, right, where men have been in Alicante, gone missing 2-3 days, they're found and everything's fine. And we were really hoping that's what this would be. The more the family started speaking, thank you, Lee Scott, the more it was quite clear that this was not normal and this was not something John would have done. Kushla is in here, Kushla Walls, and it's John's cousin. She's his family. It became quite clear that this wasn't what's happening. And then we saw Billy out there searching. We know Sharon was over there searching, which is with John George's mum and dad and his siblings. And the videos were terrible to watch. They were so hard. And it was quite clear that if John had seen any of those videos and knew his family were out there looking in rubbish tips and swamps and in fields and under bushes, he wasn't going to have his mummy doing that, and it was quite clear that something weird had happened. Now, the change in stories of Madison and Johnny were very clear from the beginning. They had something to hide. Johnny was making voice notes kind of saying all the worst things in the world he could say about John George to try and make him kind of like a throwaway victim, like he's just doing this, he's just doing that, like he's not a good guy. Thank you for the sub. They only phoned to make a missing person report after they knew Billy had already landed. And the reason they did that was because they wanted to provide proof that they were actually reporting him missing. And they actually filmed themselves. They filmed with Madison's phone, Johnny's phone, as he spoke to the police to prove that they'd made this call. And it was quite clearly that they never would have made that call had Billy not appeared to search for his son. So I'm trying to think of what detail to go into because I want to tell you who everyone is. Let me go through this timeline first, and then we'll bring out some of the other characters, I think. So on December the 30th, the Police Service of Northern Ireland, the PSNI, confirmed they will be liaising with the family to assist Spanish police, but there's not really a lot being done at that point. And it was a really painstaking kind of beginning, up until the point where John George was recovered. There was a lot of people saying they were helping the family and not a lot of people actually helping the family. And we were quite aware the only searches being done was led by Billy, Sharon, all the friends and family that had flown over from Northern Ireland to help search. We also knew the only things being done back home was all as well pushed out by John's family and friends, the protest, the posters, the church services, all of that. It was all very much done by the people. Thank you, Fia. On January the 1st, a search and rescue team from Northern Ireland fly out in Spain to assist searches. And these are a search and rescue team. J1, do you know what? You are doing too much today. And if I see you say one more thing about Billy George, well, anyway, you're going to get blocked from this room because we don't have that kind of slander in here. So you can leave. I was going to threaten him then, I shouldn't, on live. I was going to place my remote control up his bottom. No. So yeah, this search team that went over were amazing. They took over search dogs. They were kind of one of the team was actually... Sorry, I wanted him gone, Ali. I wanted him gone. I recognised him from the comments earlier about Billy George in the other live. And I wanted him gone. I was waiting for him to come in. I won't have any that stuff at all. So yeah, this team was what Lisa Dorian's sister was part of this search team. Who've put so much time and effort into helping other families at a time when they can't bring Lisa home. I think it's amazing, like the knock-on effect of this kind of help and support from other families. So on January the 4th, it's around this time that we see the newspaper article with Darren, where he speaks to the Sunday World apparently, and they kind of say, I've been told my brother's shot to death and he's been placed under a lemon orchard under a tree. We also have on the 4th, Courtney tells Spanish media the family believe he was shot dead by a friend who may have already left the country. So we already know at this time the family have been fed certain information, and they are aware that they are probably not going to recover John George alive, that they do know it's murder. Not sure what are you glad of? And the family continue to do these media appeals. Now it's around this time, and I do want to talk about it because I think it's really important, where we really see Madison's supposed to be in love life. I think the less time people can give Madison, the absolute better. Okay, now she absolutely is trying to take away from John George's family a time when they have had good news and they are starting to see some justice happening. So she's reared her ugly head because she cannot stand for them to have so much support. Okay, so if she is going to go and sit in the comments of a live, go up in a box, do all of those things, then leave the live, because any person who knows Billy is sat in that room right now, and Darren, etc., she should have been blocked from that live. She absolutely should have been blocked from that live, and all of the other comments today about Billy in that live should have been blocked. Because when you're talking about someone's son, there should be no hate in this room. The family should feel safe to come in and absolutely welcome to come in a live that's actually about their loved one, and they absolutely should be able to come in here to correct me, to say anything, to see the support, or to know the case is done properly. So if someone coming in now and said, I don't like Kushner, block, gone, bye, see you later, and you'll never be in my live again. It's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be anything accusing her of anything. All they have to do is say anything that causes her any harm or distress, and they would be gone. Because this life is about John George. It's not for people to come in and say he deserved it, it's this, it's that, his family's just bun you all, leave. Yeah, so it's around this time that we start learning some other key players. So we have Billy George post some pictures of, he's gone into Johnny's apartment over there. Johnny's already fled. Madison's gone, but there's two boys in there, and one of them's called Jimmy. I'm not going to put his full name out because he seemed to have been completely ruled out. Thank you, Kirsty. And the other one is Dan McMeekin in the striking blue tracksuit. I remember seeing him complete with man bag, eyes the size of saucers. And Billy has questioned them about where his son is. I'm not going to go into too much about what happened while they were over there with Dan, what was said, all those kind of things, because I really do think that is part of the justice system and part of what is going to be in statements and in the court. So I'm going to dead that off there. But I will tell you, obviously, that is when Dan started to speak to the family about some of the things that happened, but still refused to give them the information to find where John's remains were. And I still don't know to this day if Dan particularly knew exactly where the remains were, but he was helping in a way, but in a way he was playing both, he was trying to protect himself, and you can make that of whatever you want. You're very low. What do you mean, Caroline? In sound or low in my chair? I think my volume is up in that. Let me take my charger out. I love that photo, Johnny. He's got a lovely smile, hasn't he? Around this time also, can you hear me now better, Caroline? It might just be you need to turn your volume up. I do it all the time. I go into lives and I'm like, is this a quiet live? And they're like, turn your volume up. I'm like, oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, has everyone got good sound now? I just want to check because I don't want anyone to get lost. Okay, so it's around this time as well that we see, so Dan McMeekin becomes a key character. He is somebody who was living with Madison and Johnny at the time that John George went missing. And we know he spent a lot of time over there with John George and was part of that whole group. We're also introduced to Michael Malley. Michael Malley, who is a guy from the Czech Republic, cauliflower ears, very kind of scary, kind of a scary looking man really from the deep bit. Darling. Okay, darling. Can you not speak? Darling. Darling, come on then, doggy. Okay. Yeah, so we start. No, you're not joining the mafia. Sorry. Yeah, so we start seeing about Michael Malley as well. And we know Michael Malley is also someone who is appearing in some of the videos. Then we hear, so we've got Madison, we've got Johnny, we've got Michael Malley, and we've got Dan McMeekin. And I believe they will be the key players that we need to keep looking at going into the future. Now, we also have the famous video of John George that was leaked by Madison right at the beginning of like around Christmas time, of him he had obviously had either something to drink or taken something. His words are slurred. It's a really harrowing video because he looks not quite with it, and he's saying stuff like about the mafia. He's saying stuff that doesn't really make sense. He's pointing at his watch, he's tipping his hat, like, and we're all watching it, right, and we're trying to pick it apart. We're trying to think, like, what is he saying? Like, is he alluding to something? Is he trying to tell us something? We're trying to see the video. All of the stuff, Shauna, is on my page if you go back enough. I think I've got a John George playlist. If I haven't, I'll put one together tomorrow, but the whole video is on there. I could probably find it in a minute on my other phone. But he is... The video was like, when we hear about the video, when we saw the video to start with, we're like, what does that mean? And it's in that first video that we see Michael Malley go out onto the balcony, if you'll remember, and we're like, what is he saying? We're trying to get people to pick apart the language he's saying. It's all strange. Dylan Madison was never even arrested. Please be patient, we're getting to that part. So that is kind of the video that came out, and we didn't really know. Doesn't like you. Who doesn't like me, Lewis? Your mum. I'm really fond of her. Loads of people don't like me, to be fair, Lewis. I don't mind. So, what else do I want to add into this? Okay, so one of the mind games, this is a really important part of this case. The mind games played by Johnny, Dan, Madison, and Dawn, who you will absolutely come to know all about. So Dawn is... How do I describe Dawn? She is Johnny Smith's mother, and she is the worst kind of mother, because she is a mother who has created an absolute monster, and even as she's watching him rise up like the monster he is, she can't do the right thing, and she cannot hold him to account. And there is parts of the history with Dawn where she absolutely could have put her son on the straight and narrow, and she absolutely could have done something to change things, and she hasn't. Now, I always say, and I said this morning, we spoke about it a little bit, the word mother is a verb, it's a doing word. So you mother someone, or you father someone, you parent someone. Thank you, Jean. It's an absolute, it's something you do. So you don't just get the word mum and you're just like, well, I'm a mum, that's who I am. We mother children, right? We teach them about right or wrong, manners, respect. We teach them about consequences. We also teach them about Dylan, I'll answer that. Can we leave Dylan in for a minute? Because I would like to answer that question. It's a really good question. We do all of those things. We also... Ali, can you unblock for a minute? Because I'd like to answer Dylan's question, please, about Michael Malley's mum. We do all of those things, and we raise our children to know right from wrong. We prepare them for adulthood. And then when they go into adulthood and they make these mistakes, like murder, disgusting things, we then make a choice as a parent. Like, we didn't raise you this way. We give you all the tools to be better than this. I taught you not to be this way. In her situation, she can't do that. Now, I absolutely have to inform you that there was a time back as far as when he was 17, when Johnny Smith was accused of raping a 14-year-old girl down a back alley. Thank you. And Dawn paid the victim off. There was another time when another girl was horrifically beaten up in her own home, and I believe pistol whipped, and Dawn sent the girl on holiday with Johnny to get her to drop her statement, sent her away with her abuser. There was also another time where there was a sexual assault that happened, and she washed his clothes to get rid of DNA so the woman couldn't make a report. And then started power messaging this girl saying, do you want to ruin my family? Do you want to ruin the gym I've just built? Do you want to ruin this for me? Like, would you do that to me? Or taking her shopping and stuff. That is a real type of monster there. And I know for mothers, yeah, it's not easy. Like, if your child ever came to you and you looked in their eyes and you thought, fucking hell, you're a fucking rapist. But to look into his eyes and connect and think, right, how do we take this fucking victim down? How do we shut her down? Like, Mad. Let me ask the question. Do you not need to be careful stating info with the criminal case code? So I just actually spoke about something from the past. I'm not even talking about this case, but absolutely I could talk about what I want. It's a social media platform, and I've got freedom of speech. Dawn has said she's going to take me to court several times, and she still can if she wants to. The video's up on my page calling her exactly this. I've told her she's a shit mum. I told her she allowed rape to happen. I've told her that she allowed domestic abuse to happen, and she still hasn't taken me to court. She has taken Billy to court. She hasn't taken me to court yet, and if I'm talking pure shit, she should take me to court for sure. She'll have to come down here though. I'm not going to with her. And to be fair, for every single one of those stories I've just told you about, I have the statements from the women who have reached out and don't want to be named. I've actually put their statements in a video you can go back and watch, where they've told their story in their own words, and they've reached out and said, we see what's happening with John George, let me tell you my experience with this man, and they've come forward, including the 14-year-old girl who's now grown. So I cover everything I say with pure fact and truth, that these women at least are saying. And if it was one woman, I would be like, okay, I can't prove that. But if you've got 5, 6 women coming forward with the same story, and then we see the bruises all over Madison, and we've seen the messages even he sent Carly before about her daughter, how degrading and disgusting they are. I can kind of work with that. Like, this is a man who's a prolific abuser of women, and we can see that in the behaviour. So Dylan, before you get blocked, son, because it's quite clear who you are, you said, what about Michael Malley's mum? What about Michael Malley's mum? Michael Malley's mum, A, I don't know if she's alive or not. B, she is absolutely, if she is alive, remains silent at a time when she should have. At a time when she can see that her son is being accused of horrific murder, she hasn't spoken out against John George. She hasn't flown to the internet to antagonise a family. She hasn't put out a statement. So she's been so quiet that I don't know if she exists. I don't know if she's still here. Because she has chosen as a mother, I imagine if she's still alive, to know, hey Starseeds, hello. She has taken it upon herself as a mother to know that anything she has to say is not something probably the George family want to hear. And so we don't know about Michael Malley's mum. In fact, Michael Malley's wife, who has just separated, has not antagonised the family. She hasn't posted. And at some time, when there's a conviction in the future, I'm sure, knowing the George family as I've got to know them, they would be open to hearing an apology on behalf of their sons or their husbands. You know, like a family would reach out and say, I'm so sorry, like, you know, from my family to yours, like we've both lost here. They would be open to hearing that. But I've got some respect here because I haven't heard anyone from Michael Malley's camp tearing down the family, putting down the family, posting, going up to Billy on comments and saying, like, I hope you get justice, by the way, like Dawn has. She also didn't phone them during the search and kind of play with their feelings and say, he might be over here, look over there. She wasn't doing that to them. She's also not spoke up in defence of her son. So right now I've got nothing in the, I was going to say nothing in my arsenal, but it sounds weird. I've got nothing in anything I've seen in this case that tells me that Michael Malley's family are a bad family. I've got nothing to say they're not holding him to account. I've got nothing to say that they are making excuses for him or helping him evade justice. Nothing. Thank you, Libby. In fact, Michael Malley was there when the police wanted to arrest him because like there was no one hiding him. There was no one doing that for him. So that's why I'm not attacking Michael Malley's family, because he is a full-grown man. The same with Johnny Smith. And if Johnny Smith's mum had just shut down or I'd put out in a statement saying, like, if my son has done this, I will be horrified. And I am so sorry for the loss of John to his family. Just anything. She didn't even have to say anything bad about her son. All she had to do was say, I'm so sorry. And I really hope the truth comes out. And if my son's got anything to do with it, like, that's going to break me as a mother. Well, that's all she had to do. But she didn't do that. Now, when we talk about Dawn, there was a day when the family were out searching. It was quite far into the search. It was after Christmas. Billy's starting to get desperate. The family are broken. Billy puts out that video, the famous video we've all seen, where Billy says, give me back my son's body. I will get on my hands and knees, I will beg you, but please give me back my son. The video, everyone remembers that, right? That same time, Dawn, I believe, phones Darren, I think, out of everyone, and says, I will have a map for you in the next kind of 10 minutes of where John's remains are. And the family celebrate. they cry because they're going to get John's body back. She then sends him a map, which is about the size of half of Spain, and says he's somewhere there. That is the cruelty in what a 60-mile radius. That is the cruelty in what she did. So she knew she was not going to give him his remains, and she was never going to give them that information. But to phone a family you know out there searching, one parent who's had a heart attack before, another who's had strokes before, they're searching and they're saying, we're not leaving. Hello, RC, we're not leaving without him. We're just going to keep doing it. And the family are thinking, like, are we all even going to make it home? Because we're doing so much, we're trying. And you phone and say, I'll get back to you in the next 10 minutes and I'll have a map. And you think that we're gonna find him. And then she sends you a massive map and then won't answer the phone. Like, that's who this woman is. And that's why I say, if it was a normal case and a normal crime and it was, she had nothing to do with it, then we could absolutely say, like, he is an adult and she is probably losing a son to the prison system for a while as well. But she is not like that. She has baited Billy out on live consistently. I had to block her from my channel because at first I was letting her make comments because she was making herself look stupid. And then a pattern emerged where if Billy would put justice for my son, or, you know, me and his mum are broken, she would jump straight into that comment and be like, I hope you get justice, Billy. And she was baiting him constantly. She wanted him to turn up at the house. She wanted him to do something. She wanted to push him over the edge. It was quite clear what she was doing. And there's a real sickness in this woman to do that. Like, she is getting off on her in a family that her son has already destroyed. And we don't see this a lot. We don't see that a lot at all. It's whole new level. And that's why I don't like her, and that's why I go for her all the time. In the beginning, I didn't even know who Dawn was. I've never come across her before in my life. There was no reason for me to go for her. But as you're covering the case and you see her come in, you see her comments on all the videos, you see her constantly under fake accounts going, well, he was a druggie. If that's your logic, that John George deserved it because he struggled with addiction at certain points in his life, then so does your son and his girlfriend. Because he's also a dealer, he's also someone who's pimping out his girlfriend, he's also a rapist and a murderer. So what did your son deserve? Because you can't be judging someone else's son who is a good guy but has had some addiction issues off the back of what your son is, which is a fucking monster. He can't stand up to men, but he can destroy any young girl or woman. Like, it's gross. There is a weird relationship between Dawn and Johnny, and I will just give you my little piece on that without getting too much into it, because obviously so I have a degree in criminology, and criminology is my thing, yeah, which is obviously the behaviour of criminals and looking into the backgrounds of, like, serial killers, why they do it, that kind of thing. And all of these cases I will look at, like, why it happened, or why kind of Dawn acts that way. So without going into detail of who, why, what, Johnny Smith was sexually abused as a child by one of Dawn Smith's brothers. Horrifically as a child, I believe. And I believe that has led her, because she didn't stop that, because obviously not always parents see, but she feels responsible. So she has allowed him to become the monster from her own guilt and depravity of not being a mother at that time, probably. And I'm not saying, you know, a lot of parents, you know, especially when it's a family member, we don't see it, we can't stop it, all of those things, but it's different. It's different. Hey, Carol. Is that your new account? You've said wrong son a few times and then you've gone back to Johnny. But one of your sons is doing a normal life, and the other one is running around mentally. And you know, even if the Dawn account that just come in there, she's coming in a few today, including one saying groovy in the 90s. I was like, you were 90 in the 90s. Don't. Yeah, like roller skates not on the picture. It's weird. She does have another kid, but it's even if it happened to the other son, like she keeps trying to change it to now because people are obviously putting it out and what happened. Thank you, Karen. There still would be that guilt of, like, I didn't stop it happening to you, so now I can understand how you've kind of been that way. Maybe done some videos for their off. It's what it is, isn't it? So this is what kind of happened while they're out there, and this was just the tip of the iceberg. We won't know everything that happened I don't believe till after a trial's done and justice has been gotten, because there's lots of things the family can't put out about what happened while they were in Alicante, like what Dan said to what this person said to them, what searches they did, all of these things. And I would say to the family, like, there's a lot of things they might never put out. It might be too hard for them to talk about the searches, things they looked for, what they were going for as a family. But likewise, they may feel at some stage they want to share the whole story. And I wasn't out there for the searches, so there's lots of information I can't give you. I never had like a relationship with any of the other family members, only Kushla back here, and we were back home trying to do what we could over here. We didn't know too much of the day-to-day searches, just that John wasn't being found and the bits that Billy would update every day. So we do know there was some kind of conversations between Billy and Mally, none of them very helpful. We know that Dan kind of would speak to the family, but it wasn't the whole truth. We knew there were little bits all over the place, but it's hard to get to the truth even there. Madison was in it earlier and got blocked. She got blocked quite quickly after I asked her if she was pregnant and she went mad. So we're up to the part where the search team, which is also part of Lisa Dorian's sisters group, they bring out canine dogs, they search, they've come over. You heard it, Michael Malley's, what, the baby? Have you really, Kushla, or not? I know there was a thing between them, but I don't know if it's I said to her earlier, Kushla, if you eat a can of beans, I can't pick which one made you fart. And I'm going to say it's probably going to be the same situation here, Madison. She was not happy. She told me to get a real job. I was like, well, I'll try. So if any of you see me on OF later with my mail all over my face, mind your business. I'm going to be working. Okay, so from there, we had the 7th of January is when John George is found. And it's bittersweet, right? His family aren't going to leave until they find him. And the stress and everything on them is getting a lot. The public are watching, and the public are getting really worried about Billy, about his health, about the strain on the family, about Sharon, how his family are going to cope if they don't find him. And if they're... Because I honestly believe, and Kushla says she can probably confirm it, I think Darren's here as well, I believe if John hadn't been found to this day, Billy would still be out there. I honestly believe Billy and the family would still be out there to this day. And I fully believe that he would not have left. I honestly think he would still be out there. 100%, Darren said. And I know Billy had a conversation with people, and he's like, if I'm here in a year, I'm here in a year. But they did find him, they did. So we know that Billy's promise to John on that day does come true, that he's not going to leave without his body. And we do know at that point that we know very minimal about the initial find. For a long time, we were led to believe that it was a farmer that had found John's remains. The way I had heard it was that a call was made to this farm, like, we're going to come and search your farm. And the farmer said, well, I'm going to go and take a little walk anyway, and had come across John's body. We now believe that it was... Thank you, Lisa. We now believe that it was Michael Malley that gave up that information. He had already been interviewed for 72 hours before John's remains were found, and then he'd been rearrested for the extra bit of time in custody. And at that point, the police actually had someone phone Billy George and say, we found John. So I believe it was only on those last couple of videos where Billy made it quite clear he wasn't leaving Spain that they knew they had to act and they had to do something. Because up until that point, no one was searching for the family, no one was helping. You know, they had Michael Malley come in, they had Dan McMeekin come in, they still weren't getting to the point of where John was. And we know up to this point there's still vehicles missing, all of those things that still need to be found for evidence, the weapon, all of those things. And I hope they do start to move. Danny, I can only answer that two ways. So I know for a long time the family believed that John had been moved due to the post that his father put up with the motorcycle guy, who he kind of believed had misdirected them and then moved John. I never believed John's body was moved, and I honestly, if I give my honest opinion, and this is obviously with the family, like, I would never go against them, but when I talk about my experience in crime scenes, I would say John was there the whole time, and I would say the blood evidence on the side of the road and where his body was found, what's left behind, etc., would prove that he was always at that spot, without being offensive, because obviously family are in here, and you can go and have a look. I'm not going to put the pictures up now because it's so disrespectful with the family in, but there was a blood pattern and a blood trail on the road, which meant that John's heart was still beating at that location, because otherwise, once you're dead, you don't bleed because your heart isn't pumping. So I just put it that way. So even when I looked at where John had found, when it was put out on a podcast in Ireland, I instantly knew that he at least was shot at that location. Oh, sorry, my tummy's like I've got hunger pains even though I've already eaten. Sorry, it's Monjaro. I personally would say that he wasn't moved. I'm not saying evidence wasn't moved. I'm not saying the guy hadn't gone out there to like check. I'm not saying the guy hadn't misdirected Billy, because it was one of Miley's friends, but I don't believe he was ever anywhere different. And I believe if the civil guard had taken the search in more serious and got more dogs out and kind of had a bigger part in the search, he would have been found a lot quicker. But if it wasn't for the George family, he would never have been found at all. So after that, and I'm not going to go too much into details at this point because we didn't know anymore until much later on, and I'll come back to it. So why was the CCTV blurred out? So the CCTV overlooking that area is blurred out because of Spanish law. So the road that goes through the orchards is private land, and so they can't film it. However, that I believe with the right forensics team, i.e. Interpol, that can be unblurred. I believe it's just like a filter over the screen, and I also believe if it's been re-recorded over, as long as it's not been recorded over too many times, I believe they can get that. And I do believe, thank you Samantha, I've always believed in my head, and I fully believe to this day, and I don't know this for sure, and I honestly don't know this for sure, I believe there is some CCTV, whether it's them in cars going up there, whether it's them returning, there is definitely something there that places the right people with John George that night, 2 vehicles. And I just believe that with all my heart. And I honestly have not been told that by anyone. I just know they travelled quite a way. I know there was pictures earlier on that day with John George chilling with Michael Malley in a vehicle. And I know from speaking to Dan, there was 2 vehicles that went out to that area. So I absolutely think it was. I hate talking about it, me, but I'm literally... If you look at behaviour patterns of these people, the actual criminal profile of these individuals, I am 95% sure photos or videos was taken of the murder. I honestly do believe that. And if they ever have had those videos on their phones or have shared them anywhere, they will forensically be gotten back no matter how much they've tried to erase it. Look at the attack, I put up the pictures of him attacking Dan McMeekin. That was screenshots from a full video of the attack. And halfway through the attack, he would start talking to Dan about, let's go and look in the weed tent and look at this, look at that, talking absolutely normal to him. And then the next minute, he's like grabbing him by the head, taking him back into the bathroom, and he's holding a gun to it, and all of those things. Like, it's a really fucking weird video. Like, he's off his rick, and he's smiling in the background. And that wasn't the only time they attacked Dan McMeekin. The scars from around his eyes, etc., that Dan McMeekin's got to this day was a complete different day, where he was waterboarded and his eyes were smashed into the side. And like, he talks about that openly, like, you don't know what else they did to me. And that was filmed. And we know the picture. I can't release the picture, Claire, it's evidence. I've only put a video up of some of the still shots. The video of Johnny sat on top of Dan McMeekin. I'm going to mention that as well, DG. I don't know why I called you DG, then I'll just call you Darren. The picture that everyone brought out, do you remember in the beginning? They're like, we think this is John George. It wasn't, it was taken months before, which is Johnny sat on Dan McMeekin holding the rifle, and Dan's got a bust leg where he's kind of shot him with the air rifle. That was all over social media. Way before John George went missing. Madison was sharing it on Instagram. They were proud of it. They were like proud of it. They weren't hiding it. These are people who actually document cruelty and like to look back on things. They laugh about things they've done to people. Johnny, all he ever wanted to do was be a soprano. He wanted to be respected. He wanted to be taken seriously. He wanted to be a big man. So he wasn't going to miss an opportunity, especially when he took down someone like John George. And I believe there will be pictures and I believe there will be videos, which absolutely breaks my heart for this family, but I do think there is. So we're now going to talk about what we know I'm gonna get a can of Coke first. Actually, I'm gonna switch the viewpoint here. What I've just told you is basically what happened from the George family. What happened for them, the search, what they knew, like going out there trying to find out. We're now going to switch to, in reality, what happened during the period of John George going missing, the murder, and the clean-up. That's what we're going to talk about next. So I'm just going to really quickly run to the kitchen and just grab a cold drink, mate. My coffee's gone freezing cold again. You know you've made it when you've got your own pyjamas. When you got your own pyjama merch, right? I don't even need gratitude, I just need justice. Justice will feed my soul, like literally more than people saying thank you to me. Like I believe in justice. I truly believe in this family, but I believe there was nothing in the whole world that any human being could ever do or have done in the past that deserved what happened to John George. And ultimately, I believe that one day his sons will be owed the whole story. I don't want them to ever think like my dad didn't want to come back to us, or like any of those things. I want them to have like the whole story, like these monsters did this to your daddy and he would have wanted more than anything to come home and be with you. So I absolutely just want justice. No volume. You might need to turn your phone up, Debbie. So what we're going to go to here was Nicola Tallant did the YouTube Secrets of the Costa Blanca, where she actually spoke to Alison Morris, and she actually put out quite a lot of the information from the neighbours and the people over there and what they had seen. So we're going to go through my notes on that I took back then, because I think a lot of people may not have seen a lot of this stuff. So again, we know that John George was the father of 2 little boys, 37 years of age, and on the second week of December he goes over to Spain to spend time with what he says are friends. He's going to have like a break. That's what we kind of know up to this point. His last contact is at 1:30. These drug dealing criminals know how shit's managed police, and that's why they all move there. Do you know what? There seems to be a massive amount of people that think they can get away with horrific things in Spain they can't do in the UK or even in certain areas of where they come from, and that's absolutely true, and we do call it the Costa del Crime because of that. However, this really, we'll get into it anyway. Do you know what, Becky, we see a lot of people going over there and horrific things happen. It's a massive area where the police are paid off a lot of the time, and there's a lot of drug activity, working girls, pimps. There's a lot of stuff, we see it all the time. When I covered Nathan's case, loads of people start coming and going, me and my boyfriend had this experience over there, and they tried to do this to us, they tried to do that to us, tried to do this to us. There's a massive undercurrent of crime over there. So his last contact, John's, is with his father around 1:30 p.m. on the 14th of December. Now, like I said a minute ago, this call is a call of Billy being a little bit frustrated and being like, John, you need to come home. John sounds distressed. He's not really sure what's going on out there. He doesn't know who to trust. And I believe at this point he started to figure out something is not right. And Billy says, come on, come home. These aren't your friends. Like, your family are over it. It's nearly Christmas. Get home. That's the kind of call. He's booked onto a EasyJet flight for the 18th of December, we believe at this time, and he never boards that flight, and his family are expecting him to be on that flight. So I'm going to go over to, I'm not going to go over too much of what we've just been over. We know at some point there is a forensic search of Johnny's property where Dan and Jimmy are still inside. I just want to mention this because the neighbours speak about it as well. And at this point, and John is still missing at this point, the civil guard announced that it's no longer a missing persons case from the information they have garnered from inside that property, and we still don't know what they took away that day, and I don't believe in the family will have that information until the day of the court being the trial. So We know that the civil guard obtained the CCTV from this street where the property is. The property where Johnny and Madison have lived, where we know John had spent time, and where Michael, Mally and Dan were also known to have spent a lot of time. So we know they have that CCTV, and it could be what they see on that CCTV that also makes them think that this is no longer a missing persons case. Johnny and Madison leave that villa for the very last time for good on the 20th of December. Okay. This coincides with Billy's phone call to Johnny Smith asking, "Where is my son?" And this is the call I spoke about earlier, that once Johnny speaks to Billy once and knows, shit, they know he's missing, and this isn't a family who are just going to be like, oh, well, he's ran off. He instantly turns off his phone and has never turned it back on to this day. Deletes all posts, like I said, with John on, with Johnny, any kind of sign of them spending time together, it's all gone before he turns that phone off. And then Johnny takes his own social media down. This is a man who from day one may as well have put on those massive red mitts that go at the basketball games you wear, and just gone, it's me, it's me, it's me. Everything he did was always like he was guilty. Like, why are you deleting your social media, taking down pictures, turning off your phone forever if you've done nothing? Like, what? Like, why are you doing that? So neighbours then speak to the police and say they saw the BMW that Johnny Smith had always drove, and it looked like it had been smashed to pieces around some parts of the car. It looked like it had been in a crash. And this is about 6 days after we know that the murder of John George happened. The neighbours have been asked, had they heard gunshots from that property? And it is believed that they're asking this because there was like fiestas going on around the time, fireworks, and they believe that the shot may have been disguised by fireworks. Oh my God, Michael. That around the 14th, 15th and 16th of December, there were many cars coming and going from the property at all times. Way more than ever before, cars they hadn't seen before, and it's constant, the movement of that house, which tells us this is when Dawn is in town, this is when Dawn's father, Johnny's grandfather, is there. We know this is when Carly and Madison's best friend also come out the day after the murder. And we know there's coming and going constantly, so it's a lot busier. They're starting to take things away from the property. Thank you, Sal, there's clean-up going on. Now, Dan tells us that it's on the 15th that he is highly injured he's highly injured by Johnny at this point, and Dawn arrives on the 15th. She cleans him up so that the injuries aren't too bad before he goes to the hospital. He's then taken to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, his passport's taken off him, it's ripped. So he can't go back to Belfast and ever kind of help the George family. He's cut straight off from doing that. Whether he ever would have come back and helped the George family, I can't say, but he certainly couldn't run and go back to Belfast. Now, we know at this time, thank you, Debs, thank you, Michael. We know at this time that a man from Alicante who was like kind of born to the area, thank you, Michael, he was the one that rents all of the properties for Johnny and Madison. It's his name on all the leases. It's just a little bit of an interesting fact, and that's why he's got places all over and we don't know about them. Thank you, Michael, so much for the stars. We also note around this time that some of the neighbours and kind of some of the locals have conversations with the civil guard, and they both talk about how Jimmy and Dan, these two young guys from Belfast and Lisbon, have come over to Spain at some point to spend time around Johnny and Madison, and all of a sudden they have just completely degraded. They've gone from being fit, healthy young men, tanned, and all of a sudden they are pale, lifeless, dark circles around the eyes, underweight, wearing shabby clothing, and they've kind of been groomed into this situation and fed drugs and made to do things and do these runners, and they're just these people are doing this all the time. Like, they're always on the get to see what they can do. They're horrible people, these two people. We then hear so I want to talk a little bit about John George and his background. You can't find a toilet? Just go on your mum's desk. That's what I normally do. Yeah, just go on your mum's desk or your neighbour's doorstep, anything like that.